this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer for Community Culture Showcase. Well, I had been on a little vacation in warm, sunny Florida. Hopefully I brought the nice warm weather back with me. Today is a beautiful day, resembling summer. So I'm happy to be back on my show, and I have lots of wonderful guests going on for the rest of the summer. And we look forward to a brilliant summer, nice warm water, lots of people at the beaches and at the parks and having lots of stuff going on. And if you are a member of a community group who does anything in the arts field, please let me know. Come on, give me a call. I'd be happy to have you on the show and promote your events and who you are. And if you need volunteers or you're doing a fundraiser, we're always available. We are a community asset, we hope. And it's my pleasure to introduce my guests today. I have the Norwich Arts Center, which is obviously in Norwich, Connecticut, and it's a wonderful group, been around for a while. I have two guests who I've been interviewing in the past, two lovely fellas. So please welcome Charlie and Thom. And so, gentlemen, what do you want to tell us about your wonderful center?
Well, there's lots to tell about the Norwich Arts Center. It's been around now for probably 27 years, I think we've been in existence. Originally opened up as an art gallery on the first floor, and in 2000 we renovated with a grant from the state and a local person to name the theater, Donald L. Theater. That was in 2000 we first opened up the theater, and since then we've been doing musical productions, we've been doing theatrical productions. Recently we just started open mics in the middle of the week. And it's also space that's available for rental. So it's a sort of an all-purpose space. It
is wonderful, and it's located on Broadway.
On the real Broadway.
In downtown Norwich, right down the street from Town Hall.
Correct.
Right next to the beautiful, I guess it's a Baptist or Congregational church that's right downtown.
Right, it's surrounded by actually two churches. First Congregational, the right side of the building, the First Baptist Church on the left side of the building, you're right, just down the one block, not even a block from City Hall.
Yeah, so it's very convenient to find. You can park on the street, there's places to go.
Yep, there's good parking in the area because at nighttime we utilize a church parking lot up on Church Street. It can hold about over 100 cars. The city of Norwich has a municipal parking lot right beside the City Hall that probably has 200 spaces, so there really isn't a problem parking when you go at nighttime.
And I like the idea that you're trying to do a little bit of everything. You do have the visual arts, you have performing arts, you have musicians come in. I have been one of your guests where I put on my face of Anastasia Goodman, my pen name as a novelist, and come and do some readings. You invite other readers to come, and lots of poets come, and it's a wonderful, open kind of place. You feel good, and it's a welcoming experience. So if you're out there and you are a musician or a playwright or a poet, even an author, and you want to go, the open mic is available. You get a few minutes to sort of warm up and do your little thing. And so it's a great opportunity for anyone watching to go ahead and just come on down. When is it usually? On the second Wednesday?
Well, the open mic is the second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the public is warmly embraced to come on down and get a feel for what the audience is like to perform in front of the audience.
We advertise it as sort of all type of entertainment at the open mic. Is something founded by Charlie about 3 years ago. I guess we're into our third or fourth year at least.
Fourth year, yeah.
And we have musicians, we have poets, we have people that tell the story. You know, people that read from a book maybe that they like.
Hoopers.
We've always wanted to have musicians. We have a young woman in the area that's a hooper. She
dances in the hoops?
Yeah, and she does it. She'll do it in the dark also because she invented her own hoops that light up. So it's very entertaining. Yeah, and she brings some other friends with her. So that's on Wednesday, second Wednesday of every month is a great night to come, and it's free.
Right.
We provide, you can display whatever talent you have.
Yes, exactly.
So everybody's welcome to that event.
And just to describe what we have physically, there on the third floor we have a theater. It seats 135 people, or we can set it up in tables and cabaret tables or big round tables.
Right.
And one of the unique things about our theater is that we welcome people to bring their own food and refreshments. We have a concession, but we invite people to bring their own food and refreshments. So people will get their family or all their friends together, and 8 of them will come in and have this big spread on the round table with all their food and wine and everything that they want. It's pretty great that way. And one of the things about it's kind of a funky space. It's really an interesting space. And the acoustics are tremendous.
Right.
When they put in the theater, they did a really good job of handling the acoustics for the theater. And then on the first floor is where we have 2 galleries on the first floor. So one, we have a monthly show. We have a new show every month.
Okay.
So that's kind of our feature gallery. Sometimes they're juried shows. Sometimes it's the show by one of our elected artists, or just a show on some topic. And then in the other small gallery that we have, we actually rent space to the public at very, very reasonable rates. So someone wants to display their art and have it up for sale, we'll sell the art for them and all of that. So
yeah, and you also provide art classes for people. You have some artists who give classes.
Yep.
So if you're an artist out there and you either want to display your art or you want to teach something about art, they should go to your website and check it out, give people a call or email people. Right. And it's administration at Norwich Arts
.org.
.org.
Right.
All right, right there on the top there. Norwich Arts with an S, no center. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. So if you are an artist out there or you want to teach some art class, this is a good place to go.
And one of the things about the Norwich Arts Center is, we're not exclusive. We want to be inclusive. We want the community to be involved. We want to be the community's resource. We want to provide programs to the community that they would be interested in, but we also want the Norwich Arts Center to be a resource for artists. So we're always looking and always open to people coming up to us and saying, I have an idea for a show, would be interested in doing something, and then we can talk about it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So to keep the lights on and stuff, you have a bunch of fundraisers that you're doing into the summer. So why don't you share with us some of the stuff that the public can come to and show their support, financial support for the good stuff you got coming down the pike?
Well, we have, in the near future, we have 3 events in the month of June that are going to be a pretty exciting. One starts on June 9th. It's a program we started probably 2 years ago. It's called the Young Musician or New Up-and-Coming Bands. And it was kind of developed by a man called Danny Fleet, who wanted to be able to highlight bands in the area that weren't necessarily able to play in the local taverns or bars or clubs because of their age.
Oh, okay.
So we got together with him and we put that on, but now it's been once a month, actually once a month, at least once every 2 months, and we named it Rock and Rose. So rock, obviously it's rock music or folk music. And the Rose stands for the Rose of New England, or the city model, the Rose City. So that was a good combination doing that. So that's on June. The next one is on June 9th. It's going to feature 5 bands. One of the bands is called the Beekeepers, who are a pretty well-known band in the area. That's a well-appreciated band. The gentleman himself has his own group, and he calls it Fleet. His name is Danny Fleet. One of the third band I can think of offhand is Victim or Victor, which is a band that played at one of our open mics, so we're familiar with that group. Second event we have is a theatrical event. It's a comedy. It's written by a local playwright named Scott Keegler. He's pretty well known more in the New Haven area than here, but he's done productions at our theater before, and his play is called Scott Keegler's Out of His Mind. It's vignettes. It's a series of vignettes, comedic vignettes, and that's on the June 16th and 17th. And that starts at 7:30. And the third event is in June 25th. It's on a Sunday afternoon. It's our 3rd annual Soul Food Gospel Brunch.
Okay.
And this last 2 times we had Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin. This year we're featuring a girl from New London, or a woman from New London named Crystal Livingston.
Okay.
She'll be coming and she'll have 3 backup singers. I don't have their names, but they sing with her at the church. And we'll be serving chicken waffles, fish and grits, and biscuits and gravy.
Okay.
Yeah, and That'll be by one of the local, hopefully one of the local producers of soul food type
Okay.
venue. So that's, like I said, that'll be third annual. That happens at 2:30 on Sunday
Okay,
afternoon.
that's a Sunday
Usually
afternoon.
runs from 2:30 to 5:30 roughly, the show.
Okay.
And that's a very well attended show. We're looking forward to doing that again this year. And then, of course, we're building our follow-on season for next year, which will reopen again in September. September through May is our general season. And during the general season, we always have a First Friday, which is either a musical event or a theatrical event in combination with an opening on the first floor in the gallery. Like Charlie said, with First Friday of every month,
Right.
there's a new opening of a new show. Could be one of our resident artists, or it could be a guest artist that would come in and rent the space to show
Right.
their work. So
That's great.
yeah,
That's great.
And one of the things we do there is one of the features we have is Miss Lottie's Cafe. That was a classic jazz series that we started back in August of 2014. Been extremely successful, extremely well received. We've featured people performing Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole. And,
That style of
that
jazz.
style of jazz. And what we do is we set up the theater space, like Charlie said, into cabaret setting. We have
Okay.
small cabaret tables. Lights are dimmed down, and you get that 1940-ish, 1930-ish of a cabaret.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's a great space for that type of a show.
It seems that a lot of stuff started happening about 3-4 years ago. You've been in existence for quite a number of years.
Right.
But what we are describing right now are things that are in their third year, their second year, a couple of years. So what was the catalyst that went from kind of an art gallery, as we would envision an art gallery, to something more of a performing arts center?
Well,
I think Charlie was. No, Charlie came on board. He's been on the board for a while. I'll let him speak for himself. But when Charlie came on board, he was able to take some of the load pressure off me and think more broader and think about other things that we could pull in. You know, I was, like you said earlier, just trying to keep the lights on, basically. And when you're trying to keep the lights on and trying to bring on shows and bring in shows and book shows and all the things that go with theatrical people and their inconsistent communication styles, my own included, it was better to have another person come, so it's sort of partnered more. And so, Charlie, you can carry it from there. But I wanted to give you on-camera credit for
Yes.
what you've done so far.
Thank you. Well, I mean, one of the things, I mean, I've been on the board for, I don't know, four years or so.
Roughly, yeah.
And, but I mean, the Norwich Arts Center is actually in 1987, right?
Yeah.
So it's 30 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the Norwich Arts Center, like really any volunteer organization, has kind of had an up and down history.
Right.
Sometimes there was, a lot of board members and a lot of activity and a lot of things going on. And then other times, not so much, and you have to pull back a little bit. So. That's kind of what's been going on. So it's about 4 years or so ago, I was able to free Thom up from some of the responsibilities that he had, and which allowed him then to be able to focus more on the theater and being able to run additional programs. So we're very fortunate that way. We've had some wonderful people from the community step forward and suggest programs to us. The whole Miss Lottie's Cafe was not anything that we thought of. It was somebody came to us with that idea, kind of all put together, and all we really had to do was to say yes. And that's when I think the Norwich Arts Center is at its best, when the community's coming to us saying, we have an idea, we want to do something, and then we do whatever's necessary in order to make it happen.
Right.
So.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Charlie. I mean, you're obviously in the arts world. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, so as an artist, I'm a poet. I started writing, I caught the poetry fever in high school when I read a John Keats poem, Ode on a Grayson Urn. That was an assignment. We had to read this poem. And it was like the most painful assignment I ever had. I read the first stanza of this poem like 27 times trying to figure out what it meant. And all of a sudden I got it. and it was like a whole new world opened up to me about expression and so ever since then I've been a poet. So that's what I do artistically. Of course, being a poet doesn't normally bring in even thousands of dollars, let alone tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Doesn't buy the beer and the cigarettes.
I had a family to support, so I worked in business, and the last 25 years I worked for Pratt & Whitney, and retired from Pratt & Whitney in 2010 with a task of earning more money in my retirement, because I couldn't really afford to retire that early, and so did that for a while, and then got involved in the board of the Norwich Arts Center, and then I stopped working and just did the Norwich Arts Center, and now I need to pay the paupers somehow and all of this, but it's a labor of love. I remember one time, because the Norwich Arts Center has been close to the brink. And,
yes, it has.
So one time we were trying to feel the waters of what it would, if we were to sell the Norwich Arts Center or something like that, and so we had a person into the theater, and he was talking about, well, I'd tear all of this out and I'd turn it into apartments, and I was just sick. I mean, honestly, I was nauseated, and so that's when I really got commitment to keeping the Norwich Arts Center open, the beautiful theater running, and keep being a center for the arts. So.
Are you do you live in Norwich?
No, I live in Montville. I was brought up in Groton, so.
You're a local boy.
Is one of the things, one of the things that was difficult for me to get up and running at the Norwich Arts Center was it's not my community. And so I had to slowly build relationships in the community, and still a lot of work to do in that area. But.
And of course, Norwich, poor thing, it's had its downs more than it's had its ups.
Yeah.
Certainly in this century, it had its glory in the 19th century, and it's been sort of spinning out of control ever since. I think it's kind of stabilized. I mean, that's my assessment of it. But it's had some really tough times for the city itself. So, and I am by training an urban planner, so I look at Norwich and I love it because I see those beautiful buildings. I mean, the architecture, the use of color and heights, and it's just lovely. It's just such a shame that all the industry got sucked out of it, and it's fallen on hard times.
It has.
And it is such a gem. And I think I once read. I have had the city historian on this show before. I think he told me that at one time it was like the richest city in the country, because it had all those 19th century industrialists who actually had their business and had their homes in Norwich. And if you drive around Norwich, you see some rundown stuff, but then you see some beautiful old houses, and still in the hands of single families that people have stuck with the town, or either they fell in love with it or they come from the area. And it's and having an arts center, even though they probably don't promote it in their real estate businesses, but I think that's a shame, because it gives the city something that lots of other cities around there, lots of them are in hard times. This, right in the center of your town, is this wonderful little gem that provides you just a complete kind of look at the arts, from art as we see visual arts to performance and everything in between. So tell us a little bit about you, Thom. I mean, how did you get suckered into this thing?
Suckered is a good word. Actually, I started, I was doing stuff when I was younger, Irish immigrant son, parents came from Ireland, and so I would go off on the weekends to wherever they would go and meet up with all their Irish counterparts, and they'd be singing and dancing and so forth. So it was kind of always in my blood. It was always exciting to see them get so excited about their culture, and that kind of got instilled in me. And then in high school, there was a couple things I did in high school, but I really didn't get involved until I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 30 years. I was mostly in submarines. I'd say submarines out of that time frame, probably submarines 24 years. And when I was stationed in Morocco, North Africa, they had a theater group one night when they would show a movie every night, and after the movies, all of a sudden you see all these people run on stage because they would have to wait for the movie to be over to start rehearsals. So my wife and I watched that and see what was going on, and we got really kind of interested in it. So finally, people saw us sitting there watching. We weren't the only ones because there was really not much to do. There was only 2 TV station. One was in French and one was in Arabic, neither of which I spoke, so they were kind of boring. So this was the entertainment, and the movies were the entertainment. So that's how I get involved in it, and I get to act in the first play I acted in was Dames at Sea. I got a little small part in the chorus, and really get bit like at that time. And then, because I was there for 2 years, started doing some, I helped out on lighting, I helped out on building the sets, and so I got all aspects of it.
Right.
In the course of 2 years, sort of on-the-job training. And from there, each duty station I went to, that was kind of one of the things I first sought out, was the theater. And then when I came here and retired, I came to New London. I retired in 1995 from the military. I had already been in a play. I had tried out for a play called The King and I in 1994. With the Norwich, it was called the Norwich Players then, a theater group. And I thought I was pretty hot stuff because I had been in lots of stuff and lots of experience.
Right.
I was because play people can be kind of cliquish. I was cast with a role as one of the royal servants. But I had a line. There was 2 of us, and I had a line. My line was, "This man, he is dead." That was my big line. But after that, I got involved in the theater group, and eventually became the theater, the president of the theater group, and of that kind of stuff, and got involved in a lot of plays. So that's how I got bit, and that's kind of, and it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding to make, a person comes in, like Charlie said, a person comes in and says, "Hey, I want to put on this play. I've never done this before," and you just nurture them. No, you just take care of them and bring them from just the idea or the creation all the way to opening night, and the room is filled with a bunch of people, and everybody appreciates the play. They show the appreciation by clapping. It's just the feedback you get from that, to me, is just, it's worth the whole thing.
Right.
So, now I do very less acting than I used to do. I'm more involved in the lighting of it, putting the sound together, help to build a set. That's just very rewarding. It's probably like what Charlie gets from when he reads one of his poetry, one of his poems.
So you do most of the stuff is done at that Donald Oat Theater itself?
Yes, most of the stuff. We used to, when I first started with that, before we had the theater, because the theater didn't open up until 2000, we opened up the theater with the play called The Face on the Barroom Floor. What we used to do is we used to rent the space at the old Three Rivers Community College, which used to be up in Mahan Drive, up by the Mohegan Park.
Okay.
That's where we first put on productions, because, but then when we got our own theater, we were able to move from that. Different size space, so it was more challenging because they had 300 seats. We were able to sit maybe 135.
Right. More
so
intimate theater.
The cost things are a little bit different. You're not going to be able to run it for, you run it for 5 performances generally, like most of the community theaters do. But when you go from 5 theater, 1,500 seats down to 500 seats, you got to be more selective on what you choose to put on there. A lot of people want to come and say, "Hey, why don't you put on, some great music?" Or
Sound of Music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to pay for the rights to do that. You have to rent the scores. You have to rent the scripts.
Right.
And you have to pay when we used to do it early in 2000 through 2007, we'd have live orchestras.
Yeah.
And they were $40 an hour. So.
Yes.
The whole production is very, very expensive.
Yes. Now I go as a part of the audience to the Granite Theater, which is in Westerly, Rhode Island, where I live, and that's a community theater that's been around for quite a number of years, and it's not much bigger. It's like 140 seats, and they put on shows from probably March through December, and then they take off January and February. But you have to think of how much it's going to cost you. You have actors, you have a set. How's the set going to cost? Exactly. That I'm going to be able to fill the theater with enough money to pay. And of course, the audience never pays for it. It always has to be some other kind of fundraising that literally keeps the lights on, because ticket sales rarely are able to pay for all of your expenses.
Well, you may do well, from one production, a 5-week production, and if it's a show that's a well-known show, that's the other thing. I mean, you just can't, put on something that's no one heard of, because it's very hard to capture an audience to come to see something. So there's benefit to put on what they call in the theater group old chestnuts, things that have been around for a long time, like Thoroughly Modern Millie or something like that, that people recognize the name right away.
Right.
But then again, there's the other aspect of that is, well, that's already been done. Why would I want to go see that again? But and one of the other things that have really affected us in the community theater, and I speak for all of community theater in southeastern Connecticut, if I may,
Certainly.
is the two casinos.
Oh.
I mean, the competition for two casinos, because you could be rehearsing for something for if it's a musical, you rehearse 10 or 12 weeks. A straight play, you do like 6 to 8 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on how difficult the play is. And all of a sudden, there's a travel people coming through. I remember when we were doing that. We were doing something which we were really excited about putting on, and they decided to book Frank Sinatra when he was live at Foxwoods. Well, forget it. Everybody, from 20 years old to 100 years old was going to see Frank Sinatra. That was really kind of a thing. But the casinos, we're working with the Mohegan Sun right now, and they've been very, very good to us. In fact, they were this weekend, which is we have a sponsorship coming up where they donated 100 tickets to us for Jason Aldean, which is a country western singer. He's won country western awards for the last 2 years. So I mean, we're fortunate enough now to have somebody working with us that just came on the board. So that relationship is going to grow, and I think. You were talking about 3 years ago. There's a resurgence. The community theater goes up and down because it goes up because you have. I remember when I first came on King and I, there was one family there, a local family, that had 5 kids. So in the King of all 5 kids were in there, and the mother was in there. And those kids all went off to college. So then you lost and there was many families like that at the time. So you lost all that core people that you could draw on. Because in community theater, none of the actors get paid. I mean, they were all performing for free.
Okay.
And even the lighting people, sound people, all the technical people may also be free. So it's a labor of love, like you had said earlier. So, and if it's not a labor of love, then people just don't go with it.
Right.
And as we all know, things are different now with the internet and with being able to go on YouTube and so forth.
Right.
Like the Elks Club, the Shriners, all those organizations that used to be the outlet for people, are all withering because of that. So it's harder than it used to be.
To get people involved,
become
volunteers and organizations.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
But there is nothing like community theater. I mean, to actually be present when the entertainment is taking place. There's nothing like it. And when you know that these are local people that are doing it out of their love and passion for for acting and playwriting and like that. It's I don't know. I love local theater. It's really, really, really great.
Well, we're very lucky in this part.
I guess people, I wish that people, would give it more of a chance. Because I think if you go to a live show, and particularly in an intimate atmosphere like the Norwich Arts Center or with Chestnut Street Playhouse, it's something. There's an energy in the room, and it's a lot of fun.
I was going to say that in this part of generally in this part of the country, there is a lot of local theater.
Yes, there is.
And companies fold, they come back, or they come back in new iterations.
Right.
And there's also a kind of a history of doing public events. So I live in Westerly, so we have the Chorus of Westerly does their big pop show in June. Again, open to the public, done in the Wilcox Park, beautiful thing, third Saturday in June. They also do the Shakespeare in the Park.
Right.
And the end of July into August. Now, some of that is equity, is my understanding.
Yeah, some of that is equity, right.
So again, but there are some volunteers, and believe me, the town goes out and it tries to do a really good show for the community. Part of that, I think, is nurtured by the fact that Westerly is much more of a thriving community. And that it gets assistance from the town council, gets assistance from the town manager and many of the town departments. I think that the fact that you even have a couple of theaters here and that it continues to run is a credit to the people who are trying to push it, because you don't have that kind of political political help that comes with, letting the town be involved with what you do. So, that Norwich is able, the Art Center is able to do as much as it does is really a credit to you guys and to, your other board members and the people who are really devoted, that they need to have, they believe that all communities, regardless, should have this arts presence in it, that music and art really do tame the beast in all of us, and they make us better people for being exposed to it. And I think that's really to be successful, you need to have some of that kind of support. Lacking that support, you just need to get a lot of community members involved. And I'd say probably the success of the last couple of years has been you pushing to get that kind of recognition, getting those tentacles out there, doing that outreach and stuff, and make people a part of what you do. Then they bring their grandparents, their grandchildren, the kids, the aunts, the uncles, the friends, the neighbors. They're your own marketing instrument, and that's how these things happen.
Yeah, that's very true, and we're very fortunate, like you said, in Norwich. We actually have 3 theater groups. So we're rich in theater, and they're all practically in one block of one another.
Right,
There's the Norwich Art Center's Donald Theater, which we represent. There's another group down on Chester Street called the Chester Street Players. Playhouse, Chester Street Playhouse, and Chelsea Play as well. Chelsea Players is the oldest theater group, I think at least in the city, if not in the state. They've been around for many, many years.
Right.
And between the 3 of us putting on the different plays, there's always almost something to go to there.
Right.
So they're great spaces. They're great spaces.
Do you work together?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the things that we've been able to foster in the last, I don't know quite what was going on before I came on the board, but it seemed like there was a little bit of headbutting and lack of cooperation. And I don't know if the other play groups were seen as competition or not, but that's really changed. My perspective is that if one of those other organizations brings a lover of art to Norwich to see a play, raises the possibility of that person coming to our play. So instead of being competition with each other, we're really supporting each other to build a fan base for theater or music or visual arts, whatever it would be. And so, I really believe in that kind of collaboration.
Collaboration.
We've been very fortunate over the last couple of years, much more cooperation between the groups. Now, if we need set pieces, we can go down there and borrow those props, and they do the same from us.
Right.
It used to be each group had its own, warehouse of set places. If you could find the basement of the church, or, someone else's garage.
Right.
Now you don't have to have that so much, and you can't afford it anymore. Wood's not as cheap as it was back in 2000. Now, when you want to build a set, there's you used to be able to buy the wood for a fairly good price and buy it, and now you can borrow it.
You're much
you have
more
your
efficient,
own, and if you have to add to it, you can do that as well. And the same thing for the other groups. They come to us. In fact, the last show they just did at one of those 2 spaces, they came to me and said, what do you have for costumes? And I gave them, we have a costume room, leftover stuff that we don't throw away, and they, took half a dozen things from the place to use for the play.
Right.
To reuse them again, which is great.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Far more efficient when you're talking about volunteer groups, really. Yes, excellent. And I suppose I don't know if you actually coordinate in terms of the plays that you want to produce.
There's some of that. We last year we did happen to both select the same playwright for the same weekends,
unbeknownst to each other.
Yeah. So what we did was we made lemon out of lemonade. We decided to celebrate the fact that we were both highlighting this brilliant playwright.
Okay.
They were doing one play, we were doing another play, and actually we cross-promoted each other's plays, and people actually came to our show, and I spoke, how'd you hear about the play? We always ask that question, because there's expenses involved in publicity, so you try to go the cheapest way possible to bring in as many people as possible. So they said, when we're down at the Chester Street Playhouse, we heard about it. So great, and similar things. So it's, and people that are just pure actors, let's say, there's very few of those guys, because most people involved in the community theater wear multiple hats.
Right.
They will act in the different shows.
Okay, yes, yes.
You may act at the Norwich Arts Center all the time because that's where you like to go for whatever reason. Parking, the types of plays we put on.
Right.
They'll go and put to another theater, and all the people that are used to see them at our place would go to the other theater as well. So you get audience kind of following as well, which enriches, like Charlie said, the entire community. So.
And I'd like to do a shout out for the Southeast Connecticut Cultural Coalition.
Okay, sure.
Which became active about 3 years ago.
Oh gosh,
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 4 years now.
So anyway, and they've done a lot of work toward bringing groups together. And so one of the things that the Norwich Arts Center has been involved with is a performing arts group. And so we, put out an invitation to all the groups that are involved in the performing arts, either as an entertainment group or a place like the Norwich Arts Center that hosts events.
Right.
And so we ended up with a core of about 20 different organizations. We just put together a brochure of performing arts organizations in southeastern Connecticut.
So you share the marketing costs and the promotion costs of producing this little brochure.
So when someone comes to an event at the Norwich Arts Center, we give them the brochure, they look in the brochure and they say, oh wow, there's a Chestnut Street Playhouse, there's a Guard Theater, and so they become familiar with what else is available in the area.
Right.
And so that's really been really great.
Yes.
And that's just the first step, I think. I think there's a lot of other things that we can do together collaboratively to support each other. And
well, just the fact that you could save money on costumes and sets.
Right.
Is of and by itself a remarkable achievement.
It
and
is.
then if you could expand that to other theaters, then you're even doing a bigger service, as long as you don't have to go and rent more space or something. But yeah, just those kinds of things would be, and of course it would be, inevitably you're going to have something on the same date, especially if you want to do things in June and July, when there's lots and lots of activity. But I mean, if you could coordinate, you could decide, well, maybe you could decide to do Eugene O'Neill. I mean, we know we have the O'Neill Center, but also let's all celebrate O'Neill. So let's all do a particular O'Neill play. Many of them, I happen to love O'Neill, so you can get away with not too many actors, in fact. So I mean, that kind of, or you have a theme, and you all share in that kind of theme, and everybody does a little play somehow related to a theme. That collaboration, I think, is absolutely essential across the board for all nonprofits. If you don't collaborate, many times you will fall, because there's simply in this world just not enough financial support for everyone to exist. So you have to sort of coexist and maybe even carve out pieces. It's a big pie, the whole idea of the arts. And of course, schools have cut back on it. It's been something, in my view, something of a tragedy that not enough of our kids get an appreciation. The kids don't even know who O'Neill is. Arthur Miller, some of these people, they know Shakespeare because that's jammed down their throat. But there's a whole bunch of other American playwrights lost because it's just not there. Maybe they don't have a debating club anymore. Maybe they don't have a theater group anymore. It's just such a shame. And of course, one of the people are always complaining about classical music dying. Well, it's dying because 5-year-olds have not been listening to it. Right. And it doesn't have to be your parents. Your parents, a lot of them aren't going to be listening. But if you go to school and you have to listen to stuff like that, it becomes part of who you are as a person and as a kid growing up and getting exposed to all this thing. Yeah. I just think it's such a shame, and I don't like to introduce politics, but of course this White House has been less than kind to the arts community. So we hope that it's a lot more bluster and noise rather than actually cutting out all the funding that might happen.
The funding has been diminishing year after year after year anyway, just in small bites.
Yeah, you had asked me how I got involved before, and I can remember I talked about the fact that the Irish would always get together and
Yes,
play their
yes.
accordions and concertinas and dance. It was great. But I recall the first time I heard a piece of classical music was in the 7th grade at St. Margaret's
Yes.
School. The nun, Sister Mary Frances, put on Rhapsody in Blue.
Right.
And that has been, stuck in my mind ever since then. It was just, and the fact that it was so long, there were so many variations of it, was this is an unbelievable piece of music, and it's always been sort of one of my favorites.
Right,
ever since
exactly.
then. Yeah,
Exactly.
And we were fortunate, Charlie was probably initiative, and this as well, within the last 2 years or 3 years, we were able to get into the Norwich Art School system.
Okay.
They actually contacted us and
Oh.
said, what's the possibility of coming in and doing a drama class? So we
Oh,
were able
wonderful.
to do that, and of course that's additional funding that we didn't have coming into us. So now
Exactly.
through those grants, and I just saw the paper yesterday, Malloy cutting back $30 million to local schools. I don't know how that's going to affect next year's budget, but it will certainly have an impact on us. So it trickles down. Not only do the schools get not to have any kind of a cultural involvement at all, the people that used to provide that are also cut out of some funds, so that hurts us as far as what we're able to do for other things in the community. So it's a negative, it's trickle down, but it's a
Right.
negative trickle down.
Right,
unfortunately.
exactly, exactly.
And the arts bring communities together. And so one of the things that we've been involved in is a program called New Visions and Voices.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
And so every 6 months we are featuring the art of an ethnic group in the in the local area. So in April we featured Latino art, and we had a juried art show, and we had a movie. We had
Colombian movie was from Colombia, right?
Yep. And we had
Latin
jazz musical
Wow, yeah.
performance, and then our culminating performance was went from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. We had Peruvian dancers. We had people telling stories about how they, what their experiences were in coming to the United States.
Right, right.
And then we closed it out with 4 very prominent Latin American poets sharing their work, and we are honoring Bessie Reyna, who's from Manchester, who was a former Latina of the Year and is part of the Connecticut Women's Hall of Fame, and so we were able to honor her, which was really nice. But the amazing thing about that day is one of the people that I had told about this event forwarded, asked me to give him the information, so I sent him the information. He forwarded that on to this woman who has a television show on Univision, which is a Latin American
Yes.
television, and she knew about
Honduras? What's it called?
Honduras, right? A young woman from Honduras who was being brought to the University of Hartford to help with classes and then do a performance. She was going to be in Connecticut for a week, and it coincided with what we were doing. So in the middle of the afternoon, this television show person shows up with this star. I mean, she was a huge star in Honduras, about a maybe 23-year-old woman, and she got on the NAC stage, and it was professional. It was there are tremendous entertainers in the area, and they do a great job, and they're wonderful to watch. But this was like a whole sort of another level. She had this whole like professional shtick and everything to her. It was quite amazing.
Yeah.
And I see in October you're going to do something with Asian art.
With Asian art, yep.
Yes, is
Yep.
it going to be
We're gonna
as
be honoring
spectacular?
Asian arts.
Is it going to be a spectacular performance as well as just visual art?
It should be as
It'll be a whole series,
Yep.
series of events. Yeah.
We have we're being loaned an art from the Connecticut College Library. They have a collection there that they don't normally often show.
Wow.
They're going to be lending us pieces from that. We have a classical Chinese woman that'll be doing a dancing and calligraphy. We're going to hopefully do a tea ceremony, demonstration of a tea ceremony in the afternoon that people can observe, which is usually a very elaborate If you've ever seen a tea ceremony, the first one I saw was at the Museum of Arts in Boston. It lasted, a couple of hours because it's
Right.
very, very formal, very, very regimented, if you will. We'll also have some poetry. We'll have a movie that'll coincide with that. And the most difficult thing we're having is coming up with the right music to be entertaining.
Oh.
So if
Once upon a
anybody has
time-
any ideas,
Well, once upon a time, I actually worked for the China Institute in Manhattan.
Oh.
And I
Oh, wow.
used to find money for their twice-a-year art gallery showings.
Oh, nice.
And they used to get art from all over the world.
Wow.
Yes, and so
That's terrific, yeah.
there's some wonderful. Well, I enjoy. Not a lot of people don't. I enjoy Chinese opera.
Ah, yeah.
I mean, that's
Right,
very
right.
elaborate,
Yeah, it
and
is.
I don't know if you would have the budget to do something like that. But I mean that, and of course, there's been a couple of wonderful movies that were actually made about Chinese opera. So
That may be
in
the-
a fictional
Right,
telling.
yeah.
So Chinese opera has been revered, and then during a period when when Mao was in power, the whole thing was destroyed, and then now slowly it's coming back to China, and then of course it had been around the world in response to what happened in the 60s with Mao and those artists and things that happened with that. But yes, that is a great art form. So yes, there's things that we can chat about because you're talking about a culture that's thousands of years old.
Right. Yeah, we're in October actually, because when you think of the Asian community, China, it's so large. I mean, it's so expansive geographically. So we're actually featuring just Chinese art, Japanese art, and Korean art this time. And a future date will be incorporating some of the other Indonesians and
okay.
Philippines
India
and
Right,
different
right.
places like that.
Very
yeah,
good,
actually.
very
It's-
good.
It's too large. I mean,
Yes.
it would be just one piece
Yes,
from every place. So
exactly.
to give that the right perspective, if you will, that's the way we're going to go. And then in April of next year, we have the African American Experience.
Oh, good.
So it's going to
Yes.
that should be very well. We're going to have Michael Bradford going to do a play for us.
Okay.
He's a local playwright. He's the right now is the University of Connecticut. I think is in the theatrical department. We have for the music. We're going to have local people writing a thing called Black Broadway.
All right.
Fats Waller and people like that.
Oh,
that
yes,
performed
yes,
on
yes.
Broadway. That'll be our musical feature, and
Right.
we have some young people from New London that do sort of street dancing. They're going
Okay.
to be there. So
Yeah.
the whole month, we try to do something exciting every weekend or something interesting.
Right.
Not everybody has the same interest, so we kind of try to break it up so that everybody
And also,
can
it's
get
not
fed.
for the audience, the greater audience, to realize that it's not one thing
Right.
that defines African American
Oh,
art.
yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think there's a misperception among some groups, some people, that there's only one kind of art. That's
Right.
not true. Just like with Chinese art, there's not one kind. There is multiple levels. So that if you know nothing about an ethnicity, you might be under the false impression
Right.
that it's just this, when almost none of it is ever just this. It's just-
Correct.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Yes.
there is a lot of different,
So,
different things to present.
The challenge, of course, is to do all of this programming. Even it costs money. It costs money, and so
Yes,
we're soliciting grants. We're soliciting sponsorships.
Sure.
The October Asian show, we really need to go out and get some sponsors for that show. So it's definitely a challenge. We're looking for sponsors for the Soul Food Gospel Brunch because what we've done in the past, we've essentially had one performer and then three musicians behind her. So this time we're going to have the one performer, but we're going to have three other singers with
Right,
her
backup singers,
to create a real gospel music experience, which is wonderful. I'm really excited about that. But now all of a sudden we're getting into the range where we're going to be lucky to break even if we don't get sponsors. And, we need to make money. We got a lot of bills to pay. We're fixing the facade on the front of the building. We need an air conditioner.
Yes, the list goes on.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. You talk to someone, another theater group or someone from out of the area, they say, "Oh, you're so lucky. You own your own building." And then you turn to this side and they say, "Oh my God, you poor thing. You own your own building. How do you do that?"
Well,
Then you have
you're
a
a
mortgage
poet,
and
so I'm
everything
going to
else.
let you take a few minutes and read some of your poetry
nice.
right here, because I wouldn't want you to have brought the book for nothing.
So this is the first unveiling of what is going to be my new book. This is actually a proof copy.
Oh, good.
I've submitted it, resubmitted it, because there is a few things that I needed to correct.
Very good.
But this is the fourth book in my Runway Lights series of poetry. So this one is Love, Nature, and Other Dreams. So should be available on Amazon, as my other books are. So let's see, do a couple of poems here.
Never let an artist not have an opportunity to express themselves.
Okay, so this one is called Work in Progress. There, on top of the made bed, where a half-read story lies open near the headboard full of old magazines and the framed photos of the kids by degrees out of date, compete for space with piles of other reading, and lining the bed is the desk with its bills, drawers full of canceled checks, handprints in plaster, and photo albums of the wedding, the vacations, the birthday parties, all wedged on top of remnant Christmas cards, the closet stuffed with clothes on hangers, half not worn in years, old blankets, sweaters, and laundry to be washed, and at the far wall, the hope chest, its bottom still lined with unused wedding gifts, its top layered with papers and forms we have not yet completed and may never, because it's Sunday and the breeze has thrown the job list to the floor, and on the made bed, we lie in each other's arms.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
We're all so busy doing, and we miss
Yes.
those great moments. So, yeah. Okay, so I'll read one more. So this is an answer. So I don't state the question, but hopefully the question will be obvious by the time the poem is over. So imagine we are far out on a beach, nothing around us except wind, sand, and ocean. And as we sit together, a pink grain rolls onto your palm, and you push it with the enormous tip of your finger. And on one of its faceted side, there's a speck, a tiny black speck of mica. That's how much. That's not very much. Yes, and even less. Imagine a nerve, a single nerve in the heart of a tiny blonde spider nestled in the tassels of a marsh reed. One reed among 5,000 that sway in a swamp like so many other swamps on this one planet, in the vast solar system, one system among millions in the universe of that mica speck on the feldspar sand grain. That much. But why so little? My love for you is small and keeps getting smaller. There is no end to its smallness. No matter how many days diminish it, suns bake it, or snows surround it with ice, there is always more, infinitely more inside.
That's good, Joe.
Very nice, very nice.
Self-published?
Huh?
Self-published?
Self-published, yeah.
Self-published, very good.
Well, poets have to do whatever they have to do to be able to create an audience.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the whole publishing process is just like so antithetical to
Yes.
the creative process.
Yes.
It's just like, I don't want to do that. So I publish the books myself, and it's kind of fun to do that. So.
Absolutely. So now that we go back to the first issue, and that is you guys need money, tell us again what your events are coming up so people can not only support them with buying tickets, but also perhaps see something where they might want to be a sponsor, businesses out there, even individuals who might want to give you some assistance. And you certainly don't have to be in Norwich to support the Norwich Art Center. So tell us again, reiterate for us, what's coming up on the calendar?
Coming up in June 9th, we have Rock and Rose with 5 bands, 5 new and upcoming bands. I mentioned a couple. Fleet was one of them, the Beekeepers and Victim or Victor.
7:30.
7:30. Yep, you can go on the website at norwicharts.org and you'll get more information on prices and where to contact. But we have the capability of buying tickets online. You can buy tickets on our box office there, and the tickets will be held for you at the door or sent to you. The other event is on the 16th and 17th of June. We have Scott Kegler's Out of His Mind, which is 2 days, 2 nights of comedic vignettes. There's a good 15 people in that cast. So it's going to be a big production.
Right.
That's at 7:30. Again, that's on the website, or will be.
Will be.
And the last event in June will be on June 25th, Sunday afternoon, 2:30 to roughly 5:30, depending how the show goes. Our 3rd annual Soul Food Gospel Brunch featuring Krista Livingston, her backup group of 3 singers, and her band.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yep. So
that's the one that we could really use some support for.
Absolutely.
In terms of sponsorships. And then our upcoming programs are Miss Lottie's Cafe, series of 3 shows featuring historical jazz greats, portraying them. And then our First Friday series, which I think is going to be 4. Is that 4?
There should be 4 First Friday musical events, and we have a play scheduled for for September, the end of September, 2 weekends in September. That's still to be determined. We have a production in December called the English Theater for Children and Adults, as well as adults.
Yeah, I can't remember.
You guys, all right, so people, you have lots of stuff going on, including the October Asian Arts. People should go on your website.
Absolutely.
And take a look.
Yep.
That's the best thing to do.
And of course, if you're willing to support the arts, we're always looking for volunteers. We're building our board. We have some wonderful board members that have come on the last 2 years that have done a tremendous amount for Norwich Arts Center. So it's kind of a new renovation, revitalization of the
Renaissance, the new Renaissance. New Renaissance. And I want to tell people, some people may know, Harriet Grayson has another kind of person living underneath that, and that is my pen name is Anastasia Goodman. I will be performing some pieces from my novels evolving around the issue of the Battle of Stalingrad, which under my Anastasia Goodman novels, my lead character, Sasha Perloff, is the grandson of the hero of the Battle of Stalingrad. So I'll talk about the battle, which is an epic World War II battle, which historians often say was the turning point as the Nazis were defeated by the Red Army. And we'll discuss the battle. I'll read passages from my fiction, and my fiction is survivors talking about living under that Battle of Stalingrad. 1 million Red Army soldiers, 1 million Nazis, 350,000 civilians, all together in a small area facing one another. May 24th, 6 p.m., the Westerly Library. It's free. Come with your friends and family. You'll get a nice education about a great battle, and you'll also hear some lovely reading from me, from my books, the Anastasia Goodman, Sasha Perloff series.
And I'll vouch for the performance. You were just at our open mic, our feature at the open mic, and shared some of that. And it was really, really interesting conversation and very interesting from your book. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah. So I thank everybody. Remember, summer's just around the corner. I hope you'll listen more. And if you have some ideas, if you have some groups that you would like to have on my show, please contact me, graysonharriet@gmail.com. It's been my pleasure to see you all. And I welcome you back to my show, Community Culture Showcase. This is Harriet Grayson. Good night.